What's good? Peace, world. Thanks for pressing play on another Bite Down Boxing video, a live stream. Just getting back rolling with this whole thing that I started working on a while ago and ran into some problems. But just thought I was going to jump on real quick, talk some boxing before the March Madness kicks off here. I think it's less than an hour now. So, kind of a busy night in boxing. Let me set something up on my phone real quick. I was struggling to keep to incorporate the live chat in my live stream, so that's why I had left off with getting it together. And I think I finally clicked on the right stuff to figure out how to do it, and it's working. So let me see if that pops up real quick. And it's not. So now that's a problem. Hold on real quick. Why is this shit not working? Alright, so anyway, I can check it out on my phone if anybody makes a comment, but what I had set up on the screen isn't showing up. But I was getting some thoughts out there on the action from last night. Haven't seen all of it. Didn't see the all the undercard of the action in Philadelphia, but it just seems like that show was a little wasn't the greatest that Top Rank had ran in a while. And obviously with the main event, with the action, with the fight ending in a weird manner with the lower body or lower leg injury to Mgumbu, really just killed the whole show, really. And then for personally, a local guy from the city of Dayton who was supposed to fight on the card really was my main interest in the card, but he ended up not facing the Christian Mbili middleweight. So that really kind of killed my interest in the show, especially in a weekend with, packed with basketball and March Madness, especially the awesome games that we've seen, in this tournament. So, also, I guess the big thing from this weekend, I guess, just looking at the development of fighters and what's the next big thing in the sport until we get some of the bigger events, until they come to fruition or get made. I guess we're taking a look at Ryan Garcia from Golden Boy Promotions, and this weekend actually happened to be his first time in the main event and on DAZN. And I was looking through some of the criticisms from the fight, and social media is cruel as can be. Nothing. I mean, if somebody has a complaint, that's where you go to voice your complaint. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good performance from the kid. I don't know if I'm as high on his future as Bernard Hopkins might be, who was on the call with Todd Grisham, I believe is his name. And, I mean, you definitely have to factor in when a great like Bernard Hopkins co-signs for a guy and vouches, for the ceiling for a guy or what his future potential is. So you take it into consideration. But as far as saying that he's ready or you want to see him against Gervonta Davis at the end of the year, to bring that on, I don't get that from that performance against Jose Lopez. I do think it was good matchmaking. I like what I saw from Garcia, but I think, he definitely has to face somebody who has a plan B and who's going to get to a plan B. Once Lopez started pretty fast, started pretty sharp. He did have a game plan. Looked like he was a decent operator and knew what he was doing in there. But he basically entered, through the front door and got into the pocket the same way every time. And once Garcia kind of adjusted to that and, found out or made up his mind how he was going to offset that or counter that, Lopez really didn't have a whole lot to offer. He had a Lopez did have a 3-inch reach. You know, he was 5 years older, I believe. Looks like he had 24 fights versus the 17 I think Garcia had coming into it. You know, he was a guy that had some power. I liked what he was doing as far as his attack. And he stepped to Garcia and put some pressure on him and tried to move the younger guy out of his comfort zone. And he came to fight. Just a small note that I didn't like was the fact that his cut man, and this is really insignificant in the big scheme of things, but his cut man had a Canelo Álvarez cap on. And I'm just like, I mean, when we're looking at promotions and we look at all the details of what goes into a card and what goes into a promotion, and the constant criticism of boxing in terms of corruption and whatnot, not that the cut man has a whole lot to influence on a card, but I just don't want anybody. I don't want none of the other team over here being represented in my corner. So. And this is a guy I got to sit here and look dead into his face as he's working on me in between rounds. That just caught my attention. But anyway, we get into the second round, and Garcia starts opening up on this guy. The guy's definitely responding to Garcia's power. And not a lot of body work from Garcia still. And I think that's going to be something key to watch, in his development, where he's going with this game. You're not always going to be able to headhunt and be successful just hitting and getting guys out of there with, just aiming at the head and attacking the head. But he's going to be tall for the division, for as long as he stays there. So it'll be interesting to see what his defense is. I mean, he doesn't bend at the knees a lot. He fights a little upright. Not a whole lot of head movement, but it seems like along with the help of, Eddie Reynoso, it seems like they're developing and crafting a style that's going to work for him. And it'll be interesting how that holds up moving forward. But like I said, we got to see him in there against some guys with more lateral movement, some slicker guys. Maybe you eventually get him in there with another guy who has some above average height for the division. But I like what I see. He does a lot of good work. I like his hand-eye coordination with his left hand. And my wife's got a little... So I like what I'm seeing in his offense. His offense is pretty good. He did miss a lot of shots once he hurt Lopez. He did miss quite a few shots. And... trying to finish him off, but Lopez was in survival mode at that point. A lot of head movement. He didn't really know what was going on. That would have been a perfect time for Garcia to go to the body, actually, and stop missing and swinging at the head. But I like what I saw. And what's up, LaTorres, man? I'm just in here doing some stuff before the game goes, before the basketball starts, man. So if you want to talk about anything, I'm checking it out on my phone. I thought I had it set up to pop up on the screen as some of the adjustments that I've made, but I guess something is not happening right. But anyway, the finish of the fight, the kid went over he did knock him down at the end of the round, and in between rounds, he notified his corner, I guess, that he didn't want to continue. I thought that was a little anticlimactic and didn't work well for... It didn't work well for the moment and for Ryan Garcia's moment, but a stoppage is a stoppage. But I think, it would have been great for the action to end in the ring. And then for it to be a younger fighter, he didn't take a whole lot of damage. So, you want the action to end in the ring. But I'm sure he did what he had to do. But it just, like I said, it was a little anticlimactic. If anybody want to comment on anything further about I think with Garcia moving forward, I guess some of looking through some of the message boards or forums today, there was some concern or some criticism about what's next for him and when is he going to face this level of competition. I saw something about when will he face an undefeated fighter and whatnot. I really felt like this was good matchmaking right here with Jose Lopez. The 3 losses, honestly, I don't know who those 3 losses came against, but like I said, I think what I saw from Lopez in the ring confirmed the fact that I thought it was a good matchup for Garcia and a good chance to for him to have some growth. You know, we're just 2 or 3 fights removed from from Garcia struggling and having some weight issues, and getting through a camp in a professional manner. So I think we're just 2 camps in now with Canelo and with the Reynosos and everything. So I think my major point was that I wanted to make, it kills me that fans can that we sit out here and we want to overthink or try to outthink what people who make a living in this industry, such as the promoters, the matchmakers, the managers, the trainers, and everybody on the whole team. If you're sitting here with a kid, with any fighter, who has, right, I agree. I'm getting to that. I think if you have a kid here, he's done the right thing in the world of social media. I know they bring it up, and some of us could care less about that, but that is an important part of the business of that fighter, for any individual fighter. And I think when you pick up on the fact that the public is responding to your fighter, it behooves you to go out here and maximize that fighter's earnings. And if you project, like I said, De La Hoya is no idiot in terms of capitalizing off of your following. So when they get together and they discuss all of this and they look at all of these different factors and the pros and cons, and the appeal of this kid, it only makes sense that this is a kid who could potentially go on to make a few or several $1 million if we invest in him right. And perfect example with Munguia, Latours. People don't want to see them get better comp. They want to see him get knocked out. I couldn't have said it better. It's like we spend very little time celebrating the tests that they pass along the way. We really just want to get them into a spot where it's a pitfall for them, and then we want to be the first to say that I told you he wasn't what they thought he was, or I told you it was just hype. So like I said, when I spend very little time listening to people who have no skin in the game. You're a fan. Sit back and observe the sport, and let the people that eat off of this and feed their families off of this, let them do what they do. And if you don't want to, this is people who don't even go and support local fights. When you have solid cards or interesting prospect locally, and some businessman or some businessmen get together and try to help that kid out and get his first 6 or 10 fights together locally, we're the people that don't even pay $25 to go see that person on a regular basis. But then we want to sit here and get in these chat rooms and say who needs to fight who and what risks they need to take. But like I said again, De La Hoya, Golden Boy Promotion sitting here with not a deep stable of guys who they can who are bankable and who will be bankable within the next 6 to 18 months. They have to do what they need to do to make sure that that they don't make a mistake with these assets. So I think, like I said, this was a good test with Jose Lopez. I don't know if what is that? May 4th for Canelo and Jacobs. I don't know if they'll look to try to put him on that card. I know that's a pretty big event. I don't know if that'll be... honestly, though, with only being out there for 6 minutes and not taking too much damage, maybe it is a chance to get him out there. But the only thing I would be concerned about is if you do try to get him on that card, maybe you have a lower level opponent and it's a showcase fight or whatnot, and it's something that really doesn't help him move forward. You're just keeping him busy. But like I said, all in all, I thought it was a pretty good outing for him. like I said, his offense is pretty much his quickness, and his offense is pretty much what they're trying to market and sell with him. Some of the stuff on the side, they mentioned him doing, photo or fashion ads for Abercrombie and Fitch and whatnot or whatever. Hey, if that's part of your package, I think you got to take advantage of it. That doesn't mean that, in contrast, somebody like Tank Davis, Gervonta, he has a deal with Under Armour, and I was in at Barclays when they brought Tank in for a special interview session. I forget what event it was, but they brought him in, and that was one of my questions I got a chance to ask was, what do you look forward to doing with Under Armour, being that he's from Baltimore and the owner and creator of Under Armour. It's all based in Baltimore. What exciting projects or what is there for you to do outside of boxing with them? And he said something about, he was hands-on with it, but you don't really see any Gervonta Davis apparel anywhere, not that I'm aware of. And I just think, again, that's kind of that's a blind spot, in my opinion, on Mayweather Promotions. But then here's a kid, he's constantly in trouble. Whether or not it's valid or legit cases or not, he's constantly out here with stories breaking about him, being in trouble with the law again. So that's your fault if you don't want to capitalize on your marketability and have other and help with your appeal. But again, going back to that Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia actually fighting at the end of this year, I think that would be very foolish. But I would say if I'm Mayweather Promotions and I'm Al Heyman or the PBC, and if they really pushed for it, and if they were that eager, in bringing him along to make that happen, why wouldn't you do it? I mean, because we're looking for some excitement with Gervonta Davis and for some meaningful fights and meaningful opponents. And while we on one hand, we could say if it was a bad loss for Garcia in that, we could obviously run out here with the Monday morning quarterback statements. But he's been with Under Armour Latours at least a year and a half. That's a fact. Like I said, they haven't really done anything with it since, and I think the first issue was the fact that he lost. He was with them before he lost his title on the scale. He was with them, and I think from that point forward, now he might, and I could be in the wrong. Maybe since then they've parted ways, but at that point in time. Before that fight against who was that, Fonseca, he was signed to Under Armour because he was the U.S. boxer for Under Armour, and then Anthony Joshua was obviously the UK face of Under Armour. And Under Armour's done some different events with I think they have a flagship store in UK or something, and I think they had Anthony Joshua make some appearance over there. And like I said, you didn't even know that he had any relationship with Under Armour, but he did. I do think it would be senseless for Golden Boy to make that happen. I'm just saying if they were foolish enough to push for that just because Ryan Garcia has believes that he's ready for that challenge. If they listened to him and went forward with it, I'm just saying that I would think that that Mayweather Promotions would try to do it, but definitely I don't think he's ready for that. I need to see more from him personally. Getting to some other parts of the show on DAZN from Indio, California. There was a WBO light flyweight fight on there with Angel Tito Acosta versus Gvozdyk-Mgumbu Lopez. That one made it to the 8th round. Acosta is the WBO light flyweight champion. Solid fight, but I'm gonna be honest. These guys are down there 108, I think it's 108 pounds or something. The only interesting thing was Costa was 19-1 with 19 knockouts, and he's Freddie Roach. He's groomed by or trained by Freddie Roach, and I just was. They were talking about his power, and his possibility of him moving up a couple of divisions based on how heavy-handed he was. To be honest with you, a lot of that fight, I didn't see him. His power didn't jump off the screen in the way that Inoue does, you know, at bantamweight, and some of the other power punchers out there. I didn't see Lopez responding to his punches in that manner. But Lopez did fight most of the fight afraid or not looking to really mix it up. So I guess he hits hard. But like I said, it wasn't the fireworks that I was expecting to make me becoming a Costa fan. I didn't walk away from that fight wanting to see more of a Costa. But it was a solid bout. It was definitely, you know, two experienced guys. And you know, in watching the sport, it's a good opportunity to try to, you know, to have an eye on all of the world champions at any of the weight classes. So from that perspective, it was a solid fight to watch. Lopez, you know, for him to be outgunned in that one, Lopez coming into the fight was 35-8. And I think he was 37 years old and whatnot. But the fight was so-so. Like I said, I was expecting a little bit more fireworks and for me to become to see a new guy to keep an eye on. The same way, you know, with watching a Sor Rungvisai, or a, like I said, Inoue, seeing some of these guys down there in the lower weight classes that you would normally pay too much attention to. It was dope to see this guy in action. But maybe Lopez was really just a crafty dude and was able to do just enough without taking a lot of damage. But he ran into a left hook in the 8th round that didn't look like the biggest shot, but he completely, you know, he didn't see it whatsoever, and he immediately reacted to it, was hurt badly, and then Acosta moved in and finished him off with the flurry of punches. So it was what it was. The other bout on there was Rocky Hernandez versus Ibrahim Class. This was a 130-pound fight. Rocky Hernandez is a guy, I believe he's 28-0. It was his U.S. debut. And Ibrahim Class just didn't give him a whole lot of resistance. It was a second-round knockout. Not a whole lot. Like I said, Class didn't put up a whole lot of resistance, didn't show a whole lot. I believe he's a Tanzanian-born fighter who lives and trains in Kansas with Nico Hernandez's dad. But he had a lot of height advantage over Rocky Hernandez, but he wasn't able to do a whole lot with it. Didn't have a whole lot of aggression to him, and Hernandez is a pretty aggressive cat. And basically, he just started breaking him down in the second round. It was a left hook and a left uppercut for the first knockdown, and then a good right uppercut at the 158 mark with Class along the ropes that Class didn't get back up from. So all in all, pretty solid card from Indio, California. I mean, if you look at it with them trying to showcase and build Ryan Garcia, and not a bad event. And like I said, you have a world title fight on there. Golden Boy's done quite a bit at that Indio, California location. That's where Machado and the Cancio, I think is his name. That's where that fight happened a few weeks ago. So not a bad outing. Really quick before I get to the ESPN Plus stuff, if you want to talk about the other DAZN action that was out there yesterday, which was it was headlined by Liam Smith against Sam Eggington, super welterweights. You might remember Liam Beefy Smith from his fight against Canelo, 2 years ago now. He was in the main event, like I said, against Sam Eggington. And then the one that I had an eye on, I've heard a lot about Anthony Fowler over the last year or so, and a guy named Scott Fitzgerald. I had to check this out on the on demand. And that's one thing with DAZN. If you do have that app, if you are a subscriber and checking out action on there, it's pretty hard to catch the fight once it goes beyond like maybe the middle of the show or the first couple of bouts. It seems to me I haven't figured out a way. Last night I was actually able to access the fight, but when I tried to rewind it to bring it back, it wasn't doing nothing. So sometimes if you can't start it, you might want to go on and do whatever you're going to do for the night and come back and watch it in the morning. The one thing that they do is, like I said, they break up the fights individually, not just like the whole entire undercard. You usually can go right in and watch whatever particular fight that you want to watch. The one thing that pissed me off with this particular card is with the Anthony Fowler and Scott Fitzgerald fight. Fowler is a guy that has a lot going on in the UK, and a rising star over there for them, even though he's only 9-0. Scott Fitzgerald, I guess, was 12-0, and but Fowler was maybe like the third or fourth best or highest ranked super welterweight in the UK. So it was really his show, and then it was in his home. The card was in his hometown. I believe it was Liverpool. Scott Fitzgerald upset him. It was a pretty decent fight. One thing that's tough to gauge is what a top super welterweight in the UK is versus a top super welterweight in the States and what we're accustomed to. But definitely at 9-0, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that Fowler should have been fighting over here in the States just yet. He had plenty of work to do over in the UK before even contemplating that type of move. But this was one of those fights with undefeated, just like with Gervonta's a world champion, so that's a bad example. But here it is, two rising prospects, both undefeated, one 9-0, one 12-0. You really wouldn't think over here in the United States that a promoter would bring those two together. You know, they would let them go out and get into contention first and maybe face each other in a title eliminator or something. But I guess it was some bad blood between these two from the amateurs, so they had a fight. And Fowler was the more talented guy offensively. He was getting, getting off in the way that he wanted to earlier in the fight. He was getting his offense and shots off easier and without getting caught, getting out of the pocket and whatnot. But Fitzgerald just basically grinded the fight out and came on in the second half. It was only a 10-rounder. And what I liked about it, the action did stay in the center of the ring most of the time. Like I said, Fowler kind of got a little flashy, trying to let his hands drop, trying to slip some shots and look good. And he had Fitzgerald, swollen up a little bit and was cruising along in the fight until Fowler had lost a couple of rounds, probably like 6th, 7th, and 8th. But then in the 9th, he came out and had a big explosion with a pair of uppercuts early in the round that had Fitzgerald in trouble. And it looked like he might even put Fitzgerald away, but he actually ran out of gas, I think. And this was the first time that Fowler had been beyond the 7th round, so that's kind of expected. Then we get into the 10th round, where you thought maybe, Fowler was going to go ahead, pull this out, and pull out the win. And Fitzgerald came out, caught him with a right uppercut, and 3 straight left hooks that knocked Fowler down. Silence in the arena, like I said, with him being the hometown favorite. And then the weirdest thing happens. It's about a minute left on the clock after Fitzgerald gets this knockdown, and then he doesn't follow up on anything. It's about 30 seconds left, and he starts waving. He steps out of the pocket, steps across the ring, and waves Fowler over to him, and does some showboating stuff. and doesn't throw any more punches for the rest of the fight. So it seems like he could have gotten rid of the guy. And then he also risked losing the fight because maybe, depending on what the judges were doing, maybe the knockout or the knockdown wasn't even enough for him to win the fight. But I guess it ended up being 96-94 for Anthony Fowler on one card, 95-94 for Fitzgerald on another. Then the third card was 95-94 as well. But then the damn video ended right as they were getting ready to say who won the fight. So that was a very frustrating thing in an era for DAZN. I had to go back on Twitter or whatnot, or BoxRec or something, to figure out that Fitzgerald actually did win the fight. So I said all that to say that it was a halfway decent fight. I don't know if either one of those guys will ever arrive over here in the States and be anything. Just for context, though, Fowler was he was about 2 or 3 spots ranked higher than Jason Wellborn, who just fought Jared Hurd back on the 22nd on the second on the undercard of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. And I think Jared Hurd defeated him and knocked him out in like the 3rd or 4th round. So if you're connecting the dots and trying to see how all of this stuff adds up, that's kind of how good Fowler is. He was rated 2 steps above Jason Wellborn. And then he was beat by Fitzgerald, who is a gutsy guy, but nothing flashy, not outstanding power or anything. So like I said, I doubt we ever see him over here unless it's in a situation like Jason Wellborn. Somebody's coming off injury. We need a credible opponent, but we don't have one in the States. And maybe it's a chance for this Fitzgerald guy to come over and make a splash, and catch somebody sleeping. Looking at the main event, Liam Smith over Sam Eggington, completely overmatched. Eggington was. Eggington had maybe a 3.5-inch height advantage, but he did have he already had like 5 or so losses on his record. Liam Smith damaged Eggington's right eye, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round, and from that point on, the eye started closing up, and Liam Smith just started tagging at will. And basically, the referee just stepped in the 5th round at the 2-minute mark and said it couldn't go on any further. So that was everything on the DAZN card, or the night for DAZN. There was a female bout on there. What else was on there? I think that was pretty much it. So, looking at I think I got 10 more minutes before the game starts, man. So if you want to talk about this ESPN card, I did not get to check out anything but the fight with Abdukakhorov and the Japanese fighter Obara. I thought that was a pretty good fight. It was a welterweight IBF eliminator, so the winner ideally would be in place to challenge Errol Spence for his title. Neither one of these guys are on that level, but it was a damn good opening fight. It was a damn good fight for ESPN Plus. Again, like I said, my main interest on that whole card was the fact that we had a local kid who used to be part of the Mayweather promotion roster, who was supposed to fight an undefeated fighter from, I believe, Montreal, Quebec, a middleweight, Christian Mbili. That fight did not happen. Mbili ended up fighting veteran Humberto Gutierrez. Wasn't able to get the knockout. But back to this Abdukakhorov fight in Obara. I would suggest, check that one out. If you like boxing, if you really like the sport, and don't necessarily need to watch, the bigger events or the known fighters out there, definitely check this one out. A lot of skill on display. Another thing is we're starting to see a whole lot of Japanese fighters more regularly on ESPN Plus, on DAZN. And these guys are tough. I mean, they're not I mean, obviously, Inoue is a pound for pound fighter, I believe, right now. One of the favorites in that WBSS tournament, and this Obara dude was pretty talented. Just I don't know, he was crafty with this right counter that he kept landing and kept catching Abdukakhorov with. But I'm gonna just call him the Punisher moving forward. I didn't fall with his name enough, but the Punisher was I want to say it was Kazakhstan, I think was where he was from. He mainly did, he was power punching all night. Like I said, Obara was mainly looking to counter, doing some slicker stuff. Good fight, man. I could go through here with the 12 rounds, which I don't have the time for that, but it was great back and forth. And again, like I said, neither guy is really at a level to challenge Errol Spence, so I don't know if either one of them ever gets. Actually, in the welterweight division, with the gridlock that we have, unless this Porter fight with Spence actually comes to fruition, maybe it's a possibility. Not anytime in the next 6 to 9 months, but I guess at some point we could see another mandatory for Spence like we did with Ocampo, and maybe this Punisher kid is somebody he has to face. But again, by that time, I'm imagining that Abdukakhorov would have to fight somebody else, and we probably never see him in there with Errol. Other than that, like I said, this Mbili kid, he was on the show calling out the best at 160 at middleweight. I think he was another originally from Africa, but now training out of, I believe it was Montreal. If you remember a couple weeks ago with Jennings losing to Oscar Rivas, the trainer, Mark Ramsey, is who this Christian Mbili is trained by. And I'm starting to be a fan of Ramsey as a trainer and as a motivator and adjustments and whatnot. I mean, it's always interesting to learn new figures in the game besides just the household names that we all know. But Mbili built like Thor or Superman or Black Panther or whatever, but came in being touted as a huge puncher, but he beat on Humberto Soto, or Gutierrez, I'm sorry. He beat on this guy for all 8 rounds, and Gutierrez is coming up from 130, I believe was where he held a title. I can't remember if it was a world title or not. But Mbili beat on this guy for all 8 rounds and wasn't able to knock him down once. I think there might have been 1 or 2 moments in there where the referee considered stopping the fight, but it went all 8, and Mbili, you got to add some other things to your game. I liked mostly what I saw. He did land a ton of good shots, a ton of good power shots, but I think maybe he could have cut the volume down, moved outside, and but, Gutierrez took the fight on like 3 days' notice, I believe is what it said. So, Gutierrez was there looking to not get knocked out and looking to just sitting back. He laid on the ropes all night, tried to cover up as much as possible. He did do some tricky, some crafty offensive things himself. But Mbili, you can't knock everybody out. So it's really no knock against him. It was good to see who he is and put a face to a name and see what he does in the future. But it's definitely one of those learning moments where, you're calling out guys like Triple G and Canelo, and in all reality, you just might not be ready for that level of competition. I missed the Kavyaskis fight. He ended up fighting to a draw with Ray Robinson, I guess. I've never been a big fan of Mean Machine. It was a great win for him in taking apart David Evanesian last year. But I just never been a big fan of the guy as far as him being sold to us as a potential future opponent for Bud Crawford. I know they're on the same side of the street, so it's an easy fight to get made. But in my opinion, Mean Machine is just not he's not a good enough boxer to really pose any difficulty or any threat to Bud. So I'm glad this fight happened and removes him as one of the potential opponents for Bud. Like I said, I felt like that would have been another Ndongo type fight. Probably 2 or 3 rounds, and Bud would have gotten him out of there. So I'm going to go back and check that one out. One thing that I'm really pissed off, I'm really not a fan of for the ESPN Plus app is the fact that, and I'm using the Fire Stick app. You press the button maybe 2 times and you can get to a UFC fight. You can get to the UFC replay of the fight that happened that night. You have all types of past fights that you can get to within 2 or 3 clicks. To go in there and find boxing, you damn near have to be able to code. I don't know what the I don't know why it's so difficult, but that's what it is. I was trying to see. I thought I just saw something. I'm trying to see something real quick. So I think that's something they need to fix. I mean, boxing was sold as a pretty guess it still didn't show up. Boxing was sold as one of the main selling points of the app. So I don't understand why boxing kind of has to be treated, why we can't get the respect so that I can just go in there and find the fights that I want to watch. So now I can find stuff easier on my phone than it is to find on the the Fire Stick app. I can go right into my phone and typically find on-demand fights and whatnot. So that's that. But getting into this Mgumbu, I got about 4 or 5 minutes before this basketball game starts. What is this? UK and Auburn? Yeah, so let me get ready to wrap this up and get on out of here. Gvozdyk, not the greatest fight before we ran into the incident with the injury with Mgumbu. I don't have much positive to say about Mgumbu other than it's almost like the African cat that Gilberto Ramirez fought. I kind of did, the guy was 37 years old, I believe, 38 maybe. Think he had 8 losses previously and whatnot. So I think it just contributed to this fight, to this event, not having a lot of, not coming off as well as one might expect for a top-ranked card. So, and like I said, I didn't have many great expectations for this particular bout to begin with. One major thing to look at was the fact we needed to see how Gvozdyk would react to live action coming back from the situation with severely injuring, permanently injuring Adonis Stevenson. And so I didn't see many effects after, lingering effects from that per se. But I just wasn't impressed with the work that he was able to get done over the first few rounds. And Mgumbu was weird. And it looked like he was falling into one of those situations where a guy really doesn't offer much offensively and can't get much done offensively on their own. So they get into taunting and doing a lot of uncharacteristic stuff or non-boxing stuff just to show that I'm here. But once he injured his leg, what was that, 4th or 5th round? Once he injured his leg, thought I had some notes on it. Left him out there. But once he injured his right, it looked like his lower left leg. He seemed like he was real disappointed and really discouraged by, you know, not being able to finish the fight. And maybe, you know, maybe his strategy was to get to the, you know, the final fourth, the final quarter of the fight, you know, 9, 10, 11th and 12th round, and maybe try to turn it on. Maybe that was part of his strategy. I don't know. But just watching his early, you know, his ability early on, he just didn't look like a guy that had a lot of, like it was going to be a struggle for him. So anyway, Gvozdyk retains his title. So-so card for ESPN. I'm sure that was to the chagrin of Teddy Atlas, who has been known to be one to make a complaint, to voice a complaint here and there. So anyway, you know, we'll see. I guess, you know, boxing can't be dope. Oh, before I go, the heavyweight, Sonny Conto. I like what I saw in that young man. Of course, obviously, he was in against somebody he was supposed to look great against. Excuse me. Another heavyweight. I believe he was 1-5 coming into it. But Conto, the dude looks like he does a little road work. Looks like he jumps rope. Looks like he does some sit-ups and crunches and core work. Good frame on him, great foundation to work with, good hand speed, nice aggression. I was really impressed with him. First round knockout. I think it was a Mexican heavyweight from Texas that he fought, or New Mexico. But very impressive for Sonny Conto. Definitely, I mean, he's extremely green. I think that was just his second fight. One of the Blessed Hands, Adorno was on there. I think it was his pro debut. I like the Adornos pretty much from what I've seen of them. Blessed Hands, and then I think Hammer Hands is the other one. I think that's what it is. But yeah, Sonny Conto, real green, nowhere near ready to be put in a discussion among the heavyweights. But like I said, a great foundation to build from, and it'd be always awesome if you have a Philadelphia heavyweight in the mix. But he's definitely part of the. I don't know if he'll be a guy that could get into the mix for a Deontay Wilder or a Tyson Fury. As those guys, the age difference and where they are, he would have to do a lot of hustling. They would have to really fast track him, for that to even happen. I can't foresee it happening. Joshua, down the road, maybe that's something, but I would imagine at that point, Joshua's been through quite a few wars, and that might not even be interesting. But like I said on an earlier video about looking at the future of the heavyweight division, and there being a bunch of young guys out here right now, Conto is a guy to keep an eye on and to consider being in the mix. I think Top Rank also has that Italian. I think he was an Olympian, but an Italian heavyweight who rocks the gladiator mask. Almost the same body type in a way, but I think Conto has better agility. But a Jogba out of there. I mean, just talking about this and thinking it through, since I remember Conto's name, it's a lot to be excited about for those of us, or those of you who, boxing is really only as healthy. The heavyweight division is your barometer for the health of boxing. So, look, Kentucky's jumping on these boys from Auburn, so let me get on, man. It's 9-3 with a steal. and Auburn just stole it back. But it's 9-3, just underneath 16 minutes. I'm gonna get ready to go enjoy this. Again, I just wanted to jump out here. I was trying to get this damn live chat feature in on the corner over there or over here. Get my finger in there. Yeah, I was trying to get this live chat right here. Should have been stuff up in there for when the show does get popping. And some didn't happen. So let me go back and troubleshoot that. And thanks for the couple guys who rocked with the show for a good 20 minutes. And thanks for the questions or the comments, the contributions from Latoris. And appreciate the the compliment on the overlay. Like I said, I really wanted that chat section up there, so I don't have to keep my phone open. But I'll go in here and troubleshoot that. Be on the lookout for the Pay Me No Mind recap of Billions. I believe episode 3 airs later on tonight. So I'm gonna keep my entertainment coverage going, my TV talk. And hey, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button when you can. And please continue to support the show. Again, my name is Wood. This is Bite Down Boxing, keeping the class in boxing. And I'm out. 1.